Tighten those laces, straighten that headband. You are listening to CHGO Marathon, a podcast about the culture, community, and challenge that surrounds the world's fourth largest race. CHGO Marathon is brought to you by Goose Island, the official beer of CHGO Sports, and the beer you drank at the finish line of yesterday's 2023 Chicago Marathon. Find one of their locations at gooseisland.com/locations. What's up, everyone? I am Kelvin Kiptum, head of content at CHGO and a finisher of the 2023 Chicago Marathon. Feels good to say that. I'm joined by my friend and coworker, Jared Wyllys, who went on this journey along with me. I think his mic is muted, so we'll have you take that off first, Jared. But what's going on?
Yeah, it feels good to say finisher, because I remember, Kevin, one of those very first episodes when you said that at that point we were an entrant, I think was the word, if I remember right. And so it feels good to now, having done it, to be able to say a finisher.
I used entrant the entire time because you never knew what could happen.
Right.
Obviously, you're not even yesterday morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock, we were not guaranteed a finishing because you never know what can really pop up. So I was very careful with that language, but what was really crazy is people on these Facebook groups are going out and trying to get these Chicago Marathon finisher jackets early. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? I understand maybe, people are getting out of town or whatever. So I understand that part of it, but I felt like I was not going to pursue one of those jackets until I could actually cross that finish line in Grant Park. So
yeah, because you really don't know what's going to happen. Even during the race, there were, I'm sure you saw it too, there were people at aid stations who were, stopped and dealing with different things. And, some of those may not have been able to finish. And so even while you're out there, you could be pretty late in the race. I saw a lady waving for help at mile 26. I mean, she was 300 yards to go and she was asking for help. So hopefully she was able to finish it out because it was so close. But yeah, until the very end, you haven't finished. And there's no guarantee, because even the process of running 26.2 miles, that's a lot can happen during that stretch too.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to have a great final episode of CHGO Marathon for at least 2023. I don't know what's happening next season, but this will be the final episode of this training and marathon season. I want to thank everyone who's joined us along the way, who's contributed on Twitter, to the show, to our podcast. It was incredible yesterday, just kind of being in the corral and hearing my name called, and I turn around and it's Elizabeth from North Carolina. And I think she and her husband listened to the podcast, and that was really cool. My cousin and my cousin's sister was like, "Wow, we're running with a celebrity." I'm like, "Well, let's not go that far," but it was a lot of fun. It was a memorable day in Chicago. And let's just kind of get the basics out of the way. It was a historic day out on the course. Kelvin Kiptum, one of the up-and-coming stars of the marathon world, just absolutely obliterated the world record, finishing in 2 hours, 35 seconds. So I think we're getting pretty close to that marathon record being pushed under 2 hours, which is insane. But what he did yesterday was insane. I mean, he was really kind of out in front for pretty much, I think, the whole way. I can't say that I watched the race, but I think that's the case. And I know a lot of people were wondering where the rest of they were out there watching the elites and wondering where the rest of the people were. So congratulations to him. I'm glad that someone with the initials KK broke that record. Can't say I'm surprised. So that was a lot of fun. I was actually running up near up Adams near the CHGO Sports Studios, and a guy kind of sidled up to me and said, "Did you hear that the world record got smashed?" I said, "No, I hadn't." And he kind of shared shared it, and then he also shared the fact he's like, I just won $1,100 betting on that. I didn't know you could bet on the marathon. So
I didn't know that either. That's
yeah. I told him dinner and drinks were on him, and then he sped away and kept going. So
he didn't stick around too long after that.
Yeah, exactly. So in the women's division, Sifan Hassan did a women's course record in 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 38 seconds. That was her U.S. marathon debut. I think everyone thought she was going to come in here and have a really good race, and she did. I mean, and beyond that, and obviously the weather was really conducive to some of these records really being in jeopardy. I think with what happened in Berlin, no one was really going to rise up and take that one down so soon with how much that one was set. But still a great race by Sifan. Des Linden broke Dina Castor's 8-year-old Masters record, finishing in 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 35 seconds. And then both course records in the wheelchair division went down. Marcel Hug and Catherine De Bruyne. They're both from Switzerland. So congratulations to everyone I just named there. That's just obviously a level of athletic achievement that I can't really even comprehend. To see those, to see them churning off, 4-minute miles is it's crazy. So, yeah. So obviously 7,000 people entered. I'm not sure exactly how many finished, but obviously a lot did. Everyone ran their own race and celebrated it in their own way. Congratulations to all who finished. The millionth finish, there was a millionth finisher, and I think it was around 4:23. And two of the people I kind of trained with were at 4:24. So I don't know how many people were within
just missed it.
They came.
Yeah, I was curious. Yeah, I heard that their millionth finisher was going to be somewhere in there yesterday, but had no idea like what the timing was going to be. So I was curious like where they fell. So
I'm kind of curious to know like how they exactly figured that out. Was it just by time, or was it actually by who crossed the mat when? I mean, it was chronological. Because obviously you cross everyone's crossing the mat at different times.
Yeah, that I would be curious to know more about that too, because I heard the prize was something like a 6-pack of 312 or something like that.
Yeah, so. I heard a case of 312.
Yeah,
I hope they gave that. Oh, and Sarah just put up a picture of me enjoying the finisher, Goose Island at the finish line there. So
I gotta say that's the best tasting Goose Island I've had in a long time. That's for sure.
So Jared, Sean left a 4-pack at the studio last week, and then he was like all concerned that I was just going to put it in the fridge. And some people at CHGO who didn't finish the marathon would drink it. I said, dude, I'm not letting anyone drink this Goose Island. I took it home, so I had an extra one last night with my cousin Laura. We had a little mini pizza party, so I've got 2 left if you want another one.
Yeah, I'll have to come snag one, because I did you keep the can, because I was debating, but I know you're not really supposed to carry that kind of stuff out of Grant Park, and so I tossed mine. But yeah, I was mulling.
I didn't because I knew that I had one at home. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, that Goose Island hit the spot. That's for sure.
It tasted great. And here's a picture of you out on the course, just chugging along. Props to your photographer there. And then you got a picture of the finish line up ahead of you.
Yeah, that was the picture on the right, or of me there. That's, I think, around mile 13. I had a friend who was out, there to see a few people. And he was paying enough attention that he spotted me coming by, and he got a picture and sent it to me, which is really nice, to get to see that. And then as I got close to the finish there, I just thought, like, I've got to get a picture of this. Because it was a weird feeling. I don't know how you felt as you were coming up on the finish line. Like, on one hand, I was feeling like, man, I'm so glad I'm here and I'm about to finish this thing, and wanted to finish quickly. But there was also a part of me that was tempted to, like, kind of slow down, because I thought, like, this is it. Like, once I do that, then, this whole thing is over. So there was a little part of me that was tempted to try to savor that moment just a little bit. So that was my compromise. I slowed down enough to get a picture of that finish line.
Gotcha. That's great. So yeah, let's get into kind of what races that we ran. Congratulations to you. You have the CHGO course record now. You finished in 4:41. I finished in 5:01. So I will let you kind of take the floor as the reigning champion, and tell me how you ran your race from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, most of all, I just feel like really fortunate that I didn't deal with any kind of no injury problems, no cramping, no nothing. I think that was a big part of it, was just as you do it, you kind of come to appreciate that, like, just being able to finish it all means a lot of things have to go right. And I had set a goal of finishing under 5 hours. And I remember saying on one of the first podcast episodes, like, I don't care if it's 4:59 and 55 seconds, as long as it's under 5, I'll feel happy. But I mean, the real answer was I just wanted to finish, but kind of in the back of my mind, I had that number. And I think the race day adrenaline plays a big factor. You don't realize until you've done it how much of a boost you get from the crowd and having people there cheering, and really just about the entire course. There are people out there cheering, which is just, I know we're going to get into some of that later, but that part of it was incredible. But I had a number in mind of, the pace that I was trying to maintain, which was around 10 minutes, 30 seconds on average. And I definitely did the thing early on that they tell you not to do, but it's really hard to avoid. And I came out pretty fast. I think, my first mile was 9 minutes and something. And I had my AirPods in, and, the app that I was using was, that gives me like the mile by mile update. And I knew after that first mile, like, okay, you're going a little fast. And slowed myself down a little bit later. And some of that, like, you slow down naturally. It's tough to maintain that kind of a pace the whole time. But yeah, I think just having in mind like a clear sense for the pace that I wanted to have, and really making myself try to stick to it and not get too fast early on makes a big difference. And I'd had a friend suggest to me a week or so ago, he said, when you get to the water stations or the Gatorade stations, he's like, it's okay to take like a brisk walk through those spots. Because he said, you're going to think that you're slowing down too much to stop to get something to drink. But he's like, really, you're talking about a few seconds difference. It's not that much. So when I got to those spots, I was still like long strides, but walking pretty much, which then I think I didn't lose my pace too much as I was stopping at those places. And really the only time I had to stop was like mile 5 for a porta potty. That was it. But other than that, I was moving the whole time, which I think helped. And like I said, just feeling healthy the whole time was really the biggest factor.
So your strategy was to walk through the aid stations, or the ones that you stopped at. Did you do any really walking the rest of the way?
No, I think and I know some people will do that. They they'll do some running and then they'll slow down, do some walking. I know that's a strategy that people use. I've never really tried that because it's just a very beginning runner still. I felt like with all of the training that we had done, I had a pretty good sense for, if I just am running the whole time and I keep around this pace, I knew I could maintain it. I could sustain it the whole time. So as we got into like race day, it was just, for me, it was a lot of like, stick with what you've done the whole time. Don't introduce anything new. Don't try anything super different. Because I knew like my comfort level with different, with how I was running, I knew where I was with that by that point. And so it was very much just about like, do what you've been doing, stick with it. It got you this far.
Was there any part of the race for you that was particularly difficult?
Yeah, I think I remember hitting around like 14, 15 or so. Because by that point you're like more than halfway, but there's still a lot left. So some of that like was just mentally thinking like, man, I still have a long way to go. And you're starting to like you know, the time that you've put in already, but still knowing like I'm going to be out here for a while longer. Because you hit that halfway point and it feels good, but then it's like I still have a lot left there. And I had, you know, more than one person who said when you get to around mile 20, 21, 22, that can be a tough spot too. Because I think some of it was the distance by that point. Some of it was, I think there weren't as many people out in that part of the city. It was a little quieter down there. But again, just like by then, you are past, if you've never, like me, if you've never run a marathon before, once you pass mile 20, that's the farthest you've ever gone. So you're now entering into like new territory. And so that was a tough thing for me. Like I've done 20 miles, but that was on that training run. That's when I stopped. And now I've got 6 more to go. But once you hit, you know, like I'm sure you experienced too, around mile 23, the crowd starts to pick up again. And then just there is something mentally about like, I have a 5K left. I can handle that. And then knowing I could finish.
Yeah, that's great. So Michigan Avenue was kind of a breeze for you. I mean, that's kind of really where you get a lot of the, I mean, that was awesome. I mean, there were so many people out there. It's so loud.
That part
to me, the last mile and a half went really quick. Yeah,
it definitely did. I actually like, I don't know about you, but I didn't end up listening to a lot of music along the way just because there was so much noise and activity. But definitely for that part, I was just like, knowing that you were getting close to the end, I was trying to take in the crowd, and there were so many people down that stretch. That part was just, it was fun. So that didn't feel too bad, except for that last hill right before.
I was going to ask,
Oh my gosh. Oh man, that was hard. And that was the spot where I saw one of the runners who she was waving for help as we were getting up close to the top of that hill. But man, that was very, very tough getting up that last little hill there.
Yeah. And then kind of just to rewind, you went off in Corral K. I ended up moving up to Corral F because the 312 bib that I got. And I was running with some other people that my relatives were in there. But how did you feel about just the weight and the anticipation in the corral?
That actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was anticipating like really feeling that wait time, but there wasn't anybody else in that corral that I knew, so I was kind of there by myself, which for me was okay because I think just mentally I have an easier time with like not, just trying to focus and get prepared for what I'm doing. So I kind of alternated between stretching a little bit, and I sat down for a while because I didn't want to be on my feet too much beforehand. And then I was just enjoying like, some of the groups that were around me, listening to conversations and stuff. And, you begin to build that sense of camaraderie because you're all about to do this together. But yeah, the weight didn't feel too bad. I think it was as they opened up our corral and we started moving forward, and you'd move forward a ways and then you'd stop and sit there for a while, and then you'd move forward a little bit more. And so there are a couple of spots where you think you're about to start, but then it's like, oh no, now you're waiting. So that part was a little tough, but overall it didn't feel too bad.
Nice. So then you crossed the finish line. And then did you cry? Did you have any reaction? What'd you do?
It was definitely emotional. I didn't cry, but I would say I was pretty close. I was feeling choked up for sure. Cause it's, you're kind of like, there's a lot going through your head at that point. Because for me going into it, I was thinking like, this is something I genuinely never thought I would be able to do. Even 2 years ago, if you'd asked me, I would have said there's not a chance I could ever do that. So thinking about that, thinking about like what it takes to get there, to be able to get to that point, and not just like the training miles, but the people that are involved in like supporting you and helping you. And two, like there is something to be said for when you run through the city of Chicago, man, you just like, it was like, man, I love this city. I had this weird feeling of like, I'm just even more in love with Chicago than I was before, because of that experience. Because that's, they map that out really nicely when you get to experience the full city like that.
Absolutely. I don't know if you had this feeling though, like kind of going crazy with marathon madness and like almost kind of losing your bearings of where you were in the city.
Yes. Yeah, there were some
that
spots
was something
where,
I didn't expect.
Yeah, I think at one point actually when we ran, when they kind of send you out west for a ways, and you end up running right past the United Center. And when you mentioned like running past right near the CHGO studios, I remember running down one of those streets and looking to my right and seeing that, I think it's like Soul City Church. And I realized like, oh, I'm like a block away from CHGO. And that was a moment where I had totally lost my bearings of like where in the city we were. And similarly, coming past the United Center, I had a similar moment where it's like, oh, hey, that's United Center. Here we are. So a little bit of that for me too.
I had that kind of like coming out of Lakeview and into Lincoln Park, kind of like the entire time. And then again, kind of getting out of Greektown. I was kind of like, where am I? And then even like Pilsen, like usually, Pilsen, you're in Pilsen, but it took a while to realize, oh yeah, like we're on 18th Street. I've been on 18th Street a bunch of times, whatever. So shout out to Golden Boy Paul, who said I was in a bad mood going through Chinatown, but sprinted the last 100 meters. And then my guy Enrique Rivera said, yo, I saw you, Kevin Kaduk, head of content. My run club Venados was posted up in Pilsen, Laughlin, and 18th. We're going to talk about Pilsen here in a second, but I saw so many people in Pilsen. It was awesome.
It was amazing.
Yeah. Shout out to Baloney Fonseca. I saw him. That was one of the highlights of it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about signs and the neighborhoods and just the entire experience from there. I'll take you kind of through my race. Kind of from the start, I got a hero spot downtown, and it kind of got weird parking down there. Kind of like my GPS took me to a different spot, and then there were so many people I had to get left on Michigan. There was a backup, and so I was thrown a little off kilter by that, but everything was fine. I went to the Kara, I don't know what they call it, like a meetup or whatever. It was in the Palmer House, and that was nice to stretch out in a ballroom and have access to some bathrooms. Although the men's bathroom ran out of toilet paper, luckily I had already taken care of that, which was nice. And got out to the corral, went into Corral F, and was able to sit there with Laura and Katie and Christy, and coincidentally, I was standing next to Quinn, the experiential head brewer from Goose Island. So that was a really nice coincidence, and I was able to talk with him as we went. One of the moments that will stick with me is right as Wave 2 started, we got close to the finish line, and they had like different kinds of music playing, and Born to Run and some other songs, and people were enjoying that. But then they started playing the Alan Parsons Project, the Chicago Bulls intro, and people just went nuts.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool. Everyone got their phones out and we were showing it. I put up a video on my Twitter account at Kevin Kaduk, and that was something like I'll always remember. So I went off really fast. I mean, this entire 4 months, anytime I would ask somebody for their advice, they would say, don't go out fast. You're going to be tempted to go out fast. Do not go out fast. I didn't listen. I'm a moron. I'm an idiot.
I'm right there with you. I was the same way.
I was running with Christy, and to give you an idea of what pace she was running, she finished in 4:01. Right. So
wow.
And I felt good. I mean, I felt really good. And when I go out for 5-6 mile runs, 7-8 miles, I'll run at 9 mile pace, right? And I just kind of felt like, okay, well, maybe this is something, after talking to some people, I was like, maybe this is something that I can do, and I'll just kind of slow down later. And I just like around probably 15 or 16, I just really started paying for it with some cramps. And it really hurt. So If I had one thing back from yesterday, it would definitely just, okay, get out there in that 10.5 mile pace and try to do that the whole time. But as I don't want to say I'm a beginning runner, but I'm definitely, a beginner runner in the terms of marathon strategies and pacing strategies. And so that's something I'm going to have to work on. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, like kind of fighting through the cramps the last, I would say 7-8 miles, that was tough, trying to kind of get motivated. I will say I now see the appeal of smaller marathons because it's a lot to take out there. I mean, it's, between all the spectators, all the noise. I would say, if you don't have that focus and if you really don't have a lot of experience, it's really easy to get bumped off of that. And keep track of yourself, and some of the GPS problems at the beginning because of all the obstructions or whatever, that was really tough. So now I can see why you might want to do one with I don't know how 1,000 other people or something, because nothing could have prepared me for how many runners were out there, with how many spectators were out there. And that was optimum conditions. So I don't know what I would have done had it been in the high 70s or God forbid 80s. Because that south end is not a lot of shade either. So my family was out there following me. It was like kind of their first time following me, obviously. Definitely, their first time. My daughters are 7 and 9 years old, so it was hard to pick them out above the barricades. And they started off in the loop. And so I missed them where they were planned on seeing me at 2 and 4. And then they were going to come meet me again at 13. And so, so then I passed 13 and I didn't see them. So I'm texting my wife. I had my phone out and she's like, we're here. So I doubled back, which probably was, I don't know, probably a terrible breach of marathon etiquette. I don't know. It was hard going back. It was probably only a block or so. Right. I was able to find them, get a picture with them. And, they made the effort to go down there and go all over the city. I just didn't want to disappoint them or whatever. And that's just the dad and husband and me. So
yeah, whatever. I get that for sure. I get that because to have them, my family was out there as well, and to have them come out to do that and knowing that that's not an easy task to come be a spectator and try to move around the course. That's a lot of work for anybody who hasn't done that before. And I kind of missed my family at around mile 3. I saw them too late. I was on the wrong side of the street and looked back and they were behind me. And I actually considered doubling back like you did. Because I thought I could see them and I sort of waved, but missed them. But I was able to find them around mile 12 and stop over and give them all hugs and stuff. And that was huge.
Yeah. And there's I don't want to use the word distraction because your family's not a distraction, but there are distractions out there. I mean, there's people crossing the course. There's people coming out and offering you food and drinks and everything, which is great. But and I will say after that half mark where I kind of thought, well, this isn't going to be, I'm not going to be burning up the time or whatever. I took a couple of Sour Patch Kids from somebody. I had a Reese's peanut butter cup. There was a lot of bananas out there, so I had that. One woman, I think, right after Pilsen had a little tiny can of Coke, and I was like, "Oh, that looks amazing." There's few things I love better than ice cold Coca-Cola. So at that point, I was like, I need, I drank that. Probably was not a good idea because it was way too sweet. So I did that. I did not partake in any Malort shots. I saw somebody giving Malort shots out in Lincoln Park, really early on, probably between 4 and 5. I thought I saw someone taking it. I'm like, that's not a great idea.
I don't know. Did you see the Fireball whiskey? That was a little further on. I saw somebody had shots of Fireball, and I thought that would probably, because it was a little chilly. So I thought, man, that might feel kind of good, but it was early enough in the race that I thought I don't need to be dealing with one shot's not going to do that much. But I'm like, I don't know what that's going to do to me. So I
know that you didn't train with Fireball whiskey, so you definitely don't want to introduce that.
Yeah, that's not the day to find out what that's like.
Absolutely.
But how did you? So when you started feeling the cramps, how did you what is it like pushing through that? How do you handle something like that?
They weren't terrible. I probably should have used BioFreeze, but I'd never used BioFreeze. So it's kind of like, is this something I want to do? Like, I don't know. So I didn't do that. They were pretty easy to kind of to rub out or just kind of get to go away with more walking. So it wasn't anything that was like too bad. I never stopped or anything like that. So that was fine. It was just kind of I just did way more walking than I should have. Probably that 8 miles or so. I will say, like, seeing people out there was great. I mentioned Peter before. I saw my friend Will Byington, who's kind of like the unofficial mayor of Chicago. Everyone knows him on the north side. I saw him very early on, and he's a photographer, and he happened to be filming as I went by, and I think like he spliced my footage in with the elite runners, which was really funny because I saw my friend Anna at 12, my family at 13 and 20. I saw our coworker Alex Campbell, I think right before Chinatown. I saw one of my Twitter friends, Marlene Toscano, around the bend in Chinatown. And then, like, in addition to my family, the ones that gave me the biggest boost was turning on to Michigan. So I had Aaron Ingram on here as he was one of the guests of CHGO Marathon, and he runs 7 on Saturdays, the running club on the south side. And he was supposed to be in the race, but he had to pull out sort of because of injury. And I was texting with him last week, and he was like, well, you know what? I have you at mile 23. I'll be cheering you on. So I turned, and 7 on Saturdays was out in force. And all the running clubs from front runners to Tortugas to Black Runners Club to, 3 Run Shy. That was one of the coolest parts, I thought. But so Aaron was out there, and he had a bullhorn, and he was getting everyone just hyped up. So that was a lot of energy. And I ran up to him, and he kind of recognized that it was me, and he just went nuts. And I got such a boost going down Michigan because of him. It was great. And then Carm, our coworker from CHGO Bears, lives pretty close to the finish line. And I was kind of chugging along there, trying to get to the finish line, and he just kind of popped out of nowhere. And it's like, it was like such a great moment. So seeing people along the course, a few of these people I mentioned, like, I stopped and took pictures with. So I probably would have gotten under 5 hours had I not done that, but it's completely worth it. So yeah. Coming down Michigan was good. I handled Mount Roosevelt pretty good. I think I maybe walked for, I don't know, 10 yards, 20 yards, but got there. And I was really surprised at how quickly the finish line was there after turning on to Columbus. Because in my mind, I thought it was longer. Or maybe it was long and it just didn't feel like it. But I was able to sprint the entire way down because I thought at that time that 5 hours was still in the equation. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll get like a 4:59, 47 or something. It wasn't to be, but I started off this entire process saying I just want to finish. And so, Jared, this is a funny story. So we had our CHGO Marathon meetup at Flo and Santos on Saturday. And this guy, Bill from Cincinnati, ultra marathoner, showed up. And I'm kind of sheepish about this whole thing because I started this podcast not knowing a lot. And I mean, to me, that was kind of the appeal of it. I was going to talk to people who do know what they're talking about. And that's kind of how I've always approached my journalism career. So I said, well, how do you think I did? And he's like, I think it was a great podcast. He said, but you started off like in the first episode saying all you want to do is finish and you're not putting a time on it. And then by like episode 13, you're like, oh, maybe I can do, 4:30. He's like, dude, just take it slow. It is your first marathon. It does not matter what time you finish. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. But for me, I'm always motivated in competing against myself. So once I saw some of these times that I was getting done, and the 20 milers and whatever, like I was keeping good paces in that. And I didn't know what was going to happen from mile 21 to mile 26. And we talked on the show too about like just kind of respecting the marathon, respecting the distance, and keeping your ego in check. And I didn't necessarily do that this time. And now I kind of know that, okay, look, you know, even though like your 18-mile run is fine, your 20-mile runs are fine, it's a whole nother ball game. I mean, when they say there's 2 races, 20 miles and the 6 miles, they're not kidding. So if and when I do my next one, I'm going to really bring that with me.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think, one of the things I experienced during the training runs. It is hard to resist when you think about your goal time and you're looking at some of those longer training runs and you start doing the math in your head on, well, if I finished 18 miles in this amount of time or 20 miles in this amount of time, then, you know, it's really hard to resist that, because I was feeling that way too. Like, I was feeling pretty confident about finishing, but tried to stick mentally with, like, if it's over 5 hours, your final time, that's going to be okay, because the goal was just to get it done.
Right.
And I felt fortunate to have, like, you know, listening to the episodes of this podcast, talking to a lot of people with experience, and feeling at least mentally like I knew, just as much as you can know what to expect at different spots. You know, having been forewarned about, I think it was Andy Behrens on like that first episode we did, who said it's a 20-mile race and then a 6-mile race. And so having been told that by multiple people, and just, we haven't really talked about fueling a whole lot, but having been kind of warned ahead of time about the last 5-6 miles or so, you need to have fueled up to that point, because after that, you're not really, like, you know, you could take another gel at that point, but it's not, your body's not going to process it the same way. And so you have to, you know, I was doing a little more fueling earlier on than I felt maybe like I needed to, just because I had been told, hey, do it now, because if you try to play catch up later, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like the nutrition got away from me a little bit. Just kind of keeping track of everything, to me, what was tough, from just, again, because there's so many distractions. It's so loud on the course and everything. So you have to have it first. You have to know what to expect. And I realize that the next one will be a different experience, and you'll be dealing with it from a different angle or whatever. So let's just talk about the experience, and let's just right now talk about what kind of everyone experienced. And I know everyone kind of saw maybe the same signs and had their different signs and different favorite signs and different favorite neighborhoods. But what are you going to kind of take with you from the experience, Jared?
Well, that's the first thing I think is, I had been told, and like we'd all heard, each neighborhood kind of approaches this their own way, but to actually see that and to run through each neighborhood was pretty incredible. Because they all, you know, every neighborhood's a little bit different, but there were a couple, and I'm sure, I know you mentioned you felt the same way, but I was just blown away by Pilsen. I've been told, like, it's a party down there, but sure enough, like, man, that was a blast running through that neighborhood. When I got done, I told my wife, like, we got to take the family, go hang out in Pilsen for a while, because just the people were so great. The energy was awesome. But yeah, there was something too about Chinatown that kind of got to me. Something about you run under that arch, you know, it says "Welcome to Chinatown," and up on top there, it said, you know, "Chinatown welcomes Chicago Marathon 2023," and just running down, you know, the main stretch in Chinatown was really cool. I loved Old Town too. I thought it was, you know, I liked the energy there.
Old Town was really cool.
Yeah, seeing all of the, like, each neighborhood and just what kinds of things they had set up, and, you know, bands that were playing and music that they were playing in different sections. The signs were, I was cracking up at some of those. I mean, some of these people, the stuff they came up with. But the one thing I loved was the number of people who had the signs that was like, "Tap here to power up." Yeah. And it would be like the, you know, Super Mario, like the green mushroom and stuff. And some of them that had made them, that they were like holding them up, so they're dangling up, you know, above the course. Yeah. And so you could run by and just kind of hit it. So I hit as many of those as I could, because I just thought,
so did you, such a cool there thing. Was one guy who had that, and then had like a speaker that played the sound effect when you did it.
Oh, I must have missed that one because I didn't hear that.
Obviously a lot of people had them and it was cool, but yeah, that one.
See,
that was like, oh, that's
a nice touch.
Next level, yeah.
Now, I had somebody suggest this to me. They said your jersey, your race shirt, write your name on it, big block letters. Did you?
Yeah. So I didn't.
Okay, because that part of it too. I'm glad I got that suggestion because I should have. Hundreds of times people would like look at you and say, they cheer for you by name. And there were a few spots, especially toward the end, where I'm getting worn out, my head's down, and I'm just kind of like, and then you hear your name and somebody's like, keep going, Jared, you got this, Jared. And I was like, oh yeah, it gives you this little boost. So that's something I would recommend to anybody who's doing, if you go out there and do it for the first time, get your name on your jersey, because I couldn't believe the number of people who, cheer for you by name. My wife was there. Like I said, my family was out there, and she said she was like seeing people's names and she was cheering for people by name. So really cool part of it too.
I was divided. I was like, I don't know if I want everyone shouting my name or whatever. So maybe next time. Yeah. Pilsen, I'm tracking back there to Pilsen. So, I had Carlos Jaramillo, who is the organizer of the Pilsen aid station, on, and we talked for about an hour. And I thought I knew what to expect, but I kind of thought it was just like that turn. And like, I thought maybe people would be going crazy. And so like Little Italy, I thought was probably like Little Italy was awesome. The turn in Little Italy was great. It was really, really loud, really nuts. But then it was kind of over. Pilsen was literally like a mile-long party.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I felt like the north side and south side, this is the difference between the north side and the south side on the marathon course. People are pretty excited up on the north side, but I also kind of feel like people are out there for their people and not necessarily everybody. You go to Pilsen, you go to Chinatown, everybody is out there for everybody. I don't know if you got that sense at all, but
yeah. You do get a little bit on the north side. You get more of a sense like they're looking for their person. There's a little bit more, because as you watch the crowd, you can kind of see the way that they're trying to keep an eye out for their person. But yeah, Pilsen was like, it just kept going and going and going. There were so many people out there.
It kind of spills out into the street.
Yeah.
Kind of spills, and there was like so many different DJ booths. It was like almost like one after the other after the other. And there's a Twitter video that's already gotten like tens of thousands of views. I don't know. I retweeted it, where it's just all this mariachi music, and you can just see people responding positively towards it. And then, to go straight from that, then into Chinatown. There was also a bridge going up where people were all dressed in white. And I think they were like,
oh, yeah.
I don't know exactly what it was. I think it looked like they were just kind of almost advertising milk.
I wondered what that was. I noticed that too, because when we started coming up toward it, it looked at first like a high school marching band. Like from a distance,
that's what I thought. Yeah,
that's what I thought it was at first. But yeah, when you got closer, I think it was they had the white shirts that said, 26.2. You're going to need milk for that.
Gotcha.
So some kind of a promotional thing, but it was like visually, it was a really cool thing to see coming up toward that bridge where they're all lined up on both sides.
And as I got up there, "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough" by Michael Jackson was playing. So nice. Everyone was going nuts playing that. So that was a fun trip up that bridge. I think that was going into Chinatown. Favorite signs I saw there was a lot of good Bears ones. I saw one that said you run better than Matt Eberflus runs the Chicago Bears.
I did see that one.
My favorite one was probably you've made it farther than Aaron Rodgers, because of course Aaron Rodgers got hurt like 3 minutes of the season.
Love it.
That was good territory for that person to come out with the sign. There was a lot of Taylor Swift ones, and I texted my wife. I said, "There's a ton of Taylor Swift signs out here." She's like, "Well, you haven't seen ours." So the most popular one was, "I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 26.2," which is a reference to her song 22. There was one, "You make the whole race shimmer." There's a lot of Barbie and Ken ones. But so then I got to my family finally, and my younger daughter was holding a sign that said, "I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 312," which of course was my bib number. So that was really awesome that they came up with that. And then my other daughter had a sign that said, "Daddy, can I watch your iPad?" So,
that's
and
good.
it's a GoDaddy underneath it. So those are my two favorite signs for that. But
I like. Did you see the ones that I saw it a couple of times? It said, if Brittany can make it through 2007, you can make it through this. I thought that made me laugh a little bit. There were. I was impressed at how clever some of those were.
Yeah, there was a few. Does this mean we can sleep in on Saturdays now?
Yes, I and a couple that I saw that said, "I trained for months to hold this sign."
Yeah, I love that one. That was a good
saw, "I don't even like driving 26.2 miles."
Mm-hmm.
So it was, the signs were, that's a nice touch for sure.
They definitely keep you going as you go along. So trying to think of what else I kind of saw out of the course that I really loved. You mentioned Old Town. I thought Old Town was not a neighborhood that gets mentioned a lot, and it being really cool. And Old Town, I think, also had a sign like "Old Town welcomes to the marathon," and so everything on Wells Street there was really kind of happening and get you going. The band in Boys Town was awesome. I got good video going.
They were great.
Them. Yeah, one guy yelled at me. There was like this row of Ted Lasso signs, and my wife loves Ted Lasso, so I wanted to get like video of that as I went by. And this guy was like, "You should have a GoPro," and I was like, "All right, man, I just got an iPhone." Like,
yeah.
So that was a little weird.
I saw a few people with stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So at the expo, the only thing I bought at the expo were those magnetic race bib pins. You know what I'm talking about?
I didn't see those.
They're like little magnets that you put on your bib so you don't have to use safety pins.
Right.
I should have used safety pins because those things not good.
They don't hold.
$25. Yeah, I mean, like they had Chicago 2023. I'm like, I want something cheap to remember this, whatever. And the upper one just kind of fell apart, but I didn't lose it. They like got stuck to the one below. So as they fell, right. And so like my bib was all scrunched up. And so then when I got around to the United Center, I kind of like started walking for the first time. I'm trying to separate them and get them back into place. I dropped two of them. I had to stop and like pick them up. I would not recommend those. I'm sorry that I screwed up those people's business or whatever, but it's a very high margin business too, right? Just like these little magnets.
Right.
I'll probably put them on here, so I guess it would be nice to have them on here.
Just as, something to,
So, yeah. But yeah. Oh, there's a picture of me and my finisher medal. Thank you for Sarah. Sarah, do you want to play the video of me crossing the finish line? And shout out to our GM Jake for, I think Jake and Jay Zawoski and a couple other people were watching the live stream to see us finish, which was really cool.
Oh, that.
So I knew where the video was, so I'll give credit to me for getting in the middle of that shot. So as a content maker, I realized where it would be.
You know where to position yourself.
I guess so. So I want to talk a little bit about the CHGO marathon meetup and just kind of that experience and just this whole experience of doing the CHGO marathon podcast. Like we started this 4 months ago, I think first weekend in June maybe, and we didn't start off with a lot of listeners, and it's not like this is like the biggest podcast in the world. I mean, it's obviously pales in comparison to our other ones, but the community that has just kind of sprung up over it in the last 4 months has been really, really cool. I made a lot of cool connections. Starting up with that CHGO marathon podcast, Will, who was the guy who recommended the Sauconys to me, he showed up. He's Scottish. He lives in Charlotte now, so it was really cool to meet him. Lucas is from Connecticut. He came in with his wife or girlfriend. I'm not exactly sure. Had a good time talking with him. They recommended me the Shock headphones, which I enjoyed wearing out there. They're like the over-the-ear ones because I didn't want to wear AirPods necessarily. And so we hung out with them. Heidi Stevens was out there. Bill, the ultra marathoner who I was talking with, was there, and this dude's 49, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not an athlete." I was like, "Man, you're an athlete. Like this guy's built like a Mack truck," and he had actually done that backyard marathon.
Okay.
The 4.2 mile loop. He had done it for 104 miles, but they only give out one medal in that thing, and everyone else gets a little plug, like wooden nickel, I guess, that says DNF on it. Even after he ran 104 miles, and he said that's his most prized possession. But he's very similar to us, Jared. I mean, he crossed 40, wanted something to do, and it's like, I want to get into shape. I'm going to get into marathoning. And then he said, I may have taken it a bit too far. I was like, well, I don't think you can take any of this stuff too far. You just, if you get into things, you get into things. So it was really cool to meet him. And he had actually just, if I understand him correctly, he had just been listening to the CHGO Marathon podcast on his way up from Cincinnati. And then I was like, okay, let's go to the marathon meetup. Lindsay and Adam were there from Chicago. Laura was there. Kelly, Dr. Bunny from our Discord group was there. Congratulations to her for finishing. She's a big Bears fan. I think she was the only card-carrying diehard member there, which was
I saw she posted a picture of her holding her diehard card. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm leaving anybody out. I hope I'm not. I also hope that people didn't come out and then not find us in the back because the front was clogged with the Alzheimer's Walk fundraiser. So I really, really hope that people didn't come out there and not find us or whatever. I put something on Twitter, but I apologize if that did happen. So it was really cool meeting people like that. Meeting Elizabeth in the corral before. One guy from TikTok, Sober Strider, he came up to me, I think right after that bridge with the milk people. And I was like, Kevin, I was like, I have no idea who this person is. And he's like, it's me, Sober Strider from TikTok. I was like, yo, what's up? There was a guy I met at Kara who would listen to the podcast. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. But kind of going around, and there was just so many different people. And to me, like the running community, like it appeals so much to me on a variety of levels, but to be out on that course and see all different types of people, different ages, obviously different sexes, nationalities, religions, political views, it doesn't matter. Everyone's going towards the same thing. And I'm in this like Facebook group. I forgot what it's called, like 2023 Chicago Marathon Runners Unite or something. And I don't want to say this thing like restored my faith in Facebook, but it actually like made Facebook like, oh, I actually kind of like going on Facebook again because there's so many people there talking about the marathon and their experiences and different ways, and everyone's supportive. Like no one ever makes, no one's ever trolling anybody on there. And I think that's like kind of a rarity too. So that part to me was very, very rewarding. And I don't think this would have been the same. And then along those same lines, so many people that followed me on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, they donated to Cal's Angels, the charity I was running for. And if I smashed one of my to-do things, it was raise $5,000 for Cal's Angels. And I think we're at 5,700. So I can't thank people enough for getting me there. So I did this for my cousin/nephew Ben, and they do a lot of good things. So very thankful for that. Shout out to Golden Boy Paul. He says, I'm from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Chicago was my first in 2004. I was at Clydesdale 448. Family from Chicago. Thanks for this podcast. Thank you for listening. Robbie, who's always in here, says, good job, Kevin. I'm sure he means Jared too. He said, one day I want to do the run. Joe was an early supporter of this podcast. Shout out to Joe. He said, favorite signs, you're running better than the government. There was a lot of those.
I did see that quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And JW says, great job, gents. Love this entire podcast. Hope it is back next year. I hope so too. I don't know exactly what is in store for this podcast. I know I've talked about, like, I hope someone else from CHGO wants to run this. I know we've inspired a few people in the bowling to take up running. And I really think this is, we do mostly professional sports podcasts, and that's to me, that's like a little, I'd say you're connecting to the audience. And this is,
yeah.
And I think we touch a lot of people. I mean, for one, I know that our female listenership of this podcast is way higher than any other podcast. So we want to make connections with really everyone, all shapes and sizes. So we'll see where it goes from here. I mean, I don't know if I'm running 2024 Chicago Marathon. Yesterday, I was like, well, I'm going to need to take a day off or take a year off. Today, I'm like, maybe. I think I really kind of want to train for a half marathon and maybe try to break 2 hours on that and make that my goal and work towards that. It's a different challenge. But we'll see. I mean, got time to make this decision. Chicago Winters coming up. We'll see. Where are you going to go, Jared?
Yeah, I felt kind of the same way. Just, I had a couple of people ask, like, so, I'm to do this again. And at this point, I don't know. I'm not even really thinking about that. I definitely know that from spending so much time preparing that I enjoy distance running. I enjoy going out there for a while. But it is like, it's a really big commitment just to prepare yourself to do it. The race itself is one thing, but yeah, it's a lot of weekends and a lot of time of, planning for, okay, I've got this long training run, and it's one thing to run a marathon when you've got the energy of the crowds, but when you have to do a 16-mile training run just out on the path by yourself, that's a very different kind of experience. So yeah, we'll see. I just right now just feel really happy with how it turned out. So we're going to take some time to just enjoy it, and then think about what's next down the road.
Yeah. Well, so the application process for Chicago starts next week. So you kind of almost have to make up your mind really quickly.
You have 3 days to decide.
I mean, luckily we have an in with Carrie Pinkowski now, so I don't know. Maybe we can leverage that. I don't know, but you talk about the time commitment. Both you and I have young children, so that takes up that's a consideration. Somebody in the corral was talking about like Oprah's time, which I think was really good. I think she did it in like 1996 or something, and I was like, yeah, but like she has money and she has no kids. So like that's the best possible combination you can have. So,
right. There's no comparison there.
Right. So we'll see. I don't think that's my last one. I know my wife, after going down there and chasing me around, I think her interest is a little peaked now. So maybe I'll have to take next summer off while she does it. Shout out to Lindsay and Adam, who were at the meetup. They're both doctors with young kids, like I think like 3 and 1 or something, and they're able to still go out there and train. So I was really impressed by that. But yeah, so I guess that's a wrap for the 2023 CHGO Marathon podcast.
It's hard to believe. It feels like we just did that first episode a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
it goes by quickly.
So we'll see if anyone has any suggestions for next year or how to go about doing this. We do have the CHGO fitness channel on Discord. So if you're actually a CHGO diehard, you get access to that Discord, and everyone in there is real supportive. People are, some people just do workout classes. Some people do yoga. Some people run marathons, but it's kind of turning into a fun little community. So if you do want to continue with us, that is an option there. Check that out at allchgo.com. And I know a lot of people listen from around the world, maybe necessarily are not Chicago sports fans, but if you're interested at all, make sure you're following us at CHGO_sports on Twitter. We try to stress community as much as possible. And I know that there's people who are diehards that are not necessarily even Chicago sports fans because they like our community. And this experience would not have been the same without this podcast. So I'm extremely thankful to everyone on that. If you're thinking about running a Chicago Marathon, absolutely do it. Just running through Pilsen and Chinatown alone was like, you feel like you're actually a professional athlete when you're doing that. Like there was no feeling like that. And then to finish it, I mean, it is a world-class marathon in every sense of the word. So do that. Just put one foot in front of the other. You can get there. I know Jared and I were doubtful on whether or not we could finish 26 miles. You can do it. If we can do it, you can do it. and it's very rewarding. I think it's definitely life changing. Do you think it changed your life, Jared?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, it's quite an experience. So again, thank you to everyone who listened, contributed, whatever. Awesome. So I'll cut it here. We will see you hopefully next year for the 2024 Chicago Marathon season in one form or another. But again, thank you and happy running.
We all silly like the mayor.